The story of Mexico's most colossal pyramids does not belong to the fierce Aztec empire of our popular imagination. In fact, when the very first Aztec warriors stumbled upon this staggering valley, the majestic stone monuments were already a silent, suffocating ruin. They had discovered an enigmatic metropolis so impossibly old that even the ancients believed it was forged by ghosts. What happened next will shatter everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. The heavy, suffocating mist of the central highlands clung desperately to the elaborate armour of the jaguar warriors. They marched relentlessly through the untamed wilderness. At the head of this fearsome column walked a seasoned scout commander, whose battered body bore the countless scars of brutal conquests. His disciplined mind harboured absolutely no fear of mortal men. He represented the undeniable apex of military might, proudly serving an expansive empire that had ruthlessly crushed every rival civilization across the known continent. Their sharp obsidian blades had already tasted the blood of 100 fallen kings, and their terrifying war cries had repeatedly shattered the courage of defending armies. They moved with the terrifying arrogance of absolute rulers, their heavy footsteps crushing the dry earth in a perfectly synchronized rhythm of domination and supreme, unyielding power. As the dense, tangled vegetation slowly began to thin out, the familiar and comforting sounds of the wilderness were abruptly swallowed. An unnatural and profoundly heavy atmosphere replaced the morning calm, and the chilly wind carried a strange, overwhelming silence. It was entirely unlike the peaceful, soothing quiet of a naturally sleeping forest. It was the oppressive, lingering silence of absolute abandonment. This haunting, profound emptiness seemed to gently vibrate with the sorrowful echoes of a forgotten era. The seasoned commander instinctively raised a calloused hand to immediately halt his formidable warriors, his sharp eyes narrowing intensely as he tried to pierce the swirling white fog. His men gripped their weapons tighter, their hearts suddenly pounding against their ribs as an invisible, crushing weight pressed down upon their broad, muscular shoulders. Through the slowly parting, ghostly fog, a colossal silhouette began to gradually materialize, casting a long, terrifying shadow over the highly disciplined but now bewildered scout unit. It was not a natural, towering mountain rising organically from the earth. It was an impossibly perfect geometric structure of massive, carved stone violently piercing the grey morning sky. As the lingering mist completely cleared away, the true, staggering scale of the ruined, ancient metropolis was finally revealed in the pale, beautiful morning light. A sprawling, seemingly endless grid of majestic temples and immense flat plazas stretched infinitely toward the distant horizon. It completely dwarfed even the grandest, most magnificent cities of their proud empire. The sheer magnitude of the breathtaking architecture was incomprehensible, presenting a landscape of towering pyramids that seemed carved by the massive hands of mythological giants rather than mortal beings. But here is where the story gets really interesting. The fearless jaguar warriors did not charge forward to conquer this new territory. These were men who had proudly bathed in the blood of their fiercest enemies, and they had laughed boldly in the face of death. Instead, their heavy, lethal obsidian weapons slowly slipped from their uncontrollably trembling fingers, clattering uselessly and loudly against the cold, unyielding ancient stone beneath their weary feet. The proud, hardened commander suddenly found his knees buckling helplessly beneath him. He was a living symbol of the most terrifying military machine ever successfully assembled on the continent. Slowly, almost entirely involuntarily, he sank deeply down into the sacred, undisturbed dust, completely overwhelmed by a profound, paralyzing sense of awe that dangerously and very rapidly bordered on pure terror. He stared blankly upward at the massive and sprawling metropolis built seemingly for divine celestial beings. It was a truly haunting ghost city where the wind softly howled through entirely empty, desolate stone plazas. There were no rival hostile armies to proudly slaughter an art fund, and there were no glittering treasures to violently plunder. Absolutely no living souls remained here to be ruthlessly subjugated under the glorious Aztec banner. There was only the crushing, overwhelming realization of his own fleeting mortality when directly placed against the eternal, unchanging permanence of this remarkably silent, monumental stone architecture. The absolute power and the violent ambition of his mighty empire suddenly felt like a fragile illusion, completely shattered by the majestic silence of a civilization that had achieved true immortality. Trembling helplessly before the sheer magnitude of the colossal ruins, the seasoned commander felt a deep ancestral reverence powerfully wash over his historically hardened warrior soul. He made absolutely no foolish attempt to claim this breathtaking and sacred territory for his powerful reigning emperor. He deeply and truly understood that mortal men could never have dragged these artificial mountains into flawless cosmic alignment. Staring endlessly upward at the towering, angled peaks of heavy stone, he softly whispered a desperate prayer to the silent heavens. He bowed his head in total, unconditional submission to the invisible ghosts. He knew deep in his trembling heart that the mighty Aztec Empire was nothing but a fleeting shadow, paling in comparison to the forgotten gods who once walked these monumental, empty avenues. To truly comprehend the staggering magnitude of this silent metropolis, we must fast forward through forgotten history and look through a distinctly modern lens. Consider the perspective of David, a highly accomplished architect who has spent his professional life designing sleek skyscrapers in the bustling heart of New York. He is a man intimately familiar with the rigid geometry of modern urban planning and the precise engineering required to build a massive metropolis. David navigates the famous grid of Manhattan every single day, fully trusting the supreme logic of contemporary American architecture and advanced complex mathematics. He inherently believes that the absolute pinnacle of human engineering is a relatively recent achievement, proudly belonging exclusively to our modern industrialized world. Yet, when David physically stands upon the breathtaking summit of the largest pyramid in this valley, his deeply ingrained modern pride begins to rapidly crumble. The relentless wind whips across his face as he gazes down at a vast urban landscape that fiercely defies all his conventional architectural education. Stretching out before him is not a chaotic, primitive settlement built by random chance, but a flawlessly executed master plan of unimaginable complexity. The entire valley is perfectly organized into a massive, highly intentional grid system that directly mirrors the meticulous layout of modern Chicago or Manhattan. Every single avenue, every sunken plaza, and every residential compound is mathematically aligned with absolute precision that seems practically impossible for an ancient society. To truly grasp this architectural miracle, imagine taking the rigid, geometric street map of downtown Manhattan and carving it directly into a rugged prehistoric valley. Every single residential block and every towering civic monument was intentionally placed along a standardized unit of measurement that governed the entire sprawling city. This was not a city that organically grew over time, but a deliberate utopian vision executed with a terrifyingly precise level of absolute control. David marvels at how these unseen engineers seamlessly integrated their colossal structures with the surrounding mountains, creating an artificial landscape mirroring the natural world. He realizes that this ancient civilization possessed a profound understanding of spatial dynamics that contemporary urban planners still actively struggle to fully master today. Without the vital aid of modern computers or satellite imaging, these mysterious master builders managed to conquer the wild landscape with absolute mathematical authority. They actually diverted an entire winding river just to perfectly match the rigid and unyielding central axis of their rapidly expanding and highly complex grid. It was a remarkably sophisticated infrastructure, specifically engineered for massive population management, rivaling the most ambitious public works projects found in modern American history. Standing completely silent beneath the vast sky, the seasoned New York architect feels his deep professional pride simply dissolve into the ancient mountain air. He feels incredibly small, entirely humbled by a breathtaking, silent genius that casually predates his entire modern profession by thousands of long forgotten years. He stares down at the perfectly straight avenue, cutting through the heart of the majestic ruins, struggling to comprehend the brilliant minds behind it. The sheer intellectual weight of this monumental achievement completely shatters the arrogant illusion that human progress is simply a straight line advancing toward the present. But here is where the story of this majestic city gets truly interesting for anyone trying to uncover its darkest and most profound secrets. They successfully built an architectural masterpiece that perfectly mirrors the complexity of our greatest modern cities, yet they inexplicably left absolutely no written records. So, who exactly were the incredibly brilliant ghosts that flawlessly designed and successfully managed this magnificent, sprawling urban wonder of the ancient world? The modern Western mind is deeply obsessed with the permanence of written legacy, firmly believing that true historical immortality requires carved monuments bearing specific royal names and detailed biographical chronicles. we are culturally conditioned to expect ancient kings to proudly stamp their personal identities across every single brick, ensuring that future generations will remember their specific triumphs and sovereign lineage. Yet, when we carefully examine the breathtaking structural remnants of this magnificent Mesoamerican metropolis, we encounter a profoundly unsettling historical void. Unlike the proud pharaohs of ancient Egypt, who obsessively covered their towering temple walls with explicit hieroglyphic inscriptions, the master builders of this colossal urban centre left behind absolutely no recorded names of their supreme rulers. There are no royal domes bearing regal titles, no narrative stelae glorifying individual military victories, and no surviving dynastic records to explicitly tell us who actually commanded the construction of these immense pyramids. Generations of dedicated archaeologists have meticulously combed through every single plaza, courtyard, and alleyway, searching desperately for any decipherable linguistic key that might finally reveal the true identity of these architectural geniuses. They discovered intricate mural paintings, stunning ceramic vessels, and elaborate symbolic iconography depicting powerful feathered serpents, yet they found no personal signatures whatsoever. It is as if an exceptionally brilliant society consciously chose to completely erase all individual egos from their monumental creation, operating entirely as an anonymous collective force dedicated to something far greater than themselves. This total absence of written personal history creates a haunting, melancholic atmosphere that profoundly challenges our conventional understanding of ancient power and ambition. In a culture like modern America, where individual achievement, personal branding, and the eternal preservation of one's legacy are deeply ingrained core values, the concept of building an empire without leaving a single royal name feels almost incomprehensible. How could millions of people labour for generations to construct one of the largest cities on the continent, without a single monarch demanding personal glory or historical remembrance? The silence of the stone wall speaks volumes, forcing us to confront the possibility that true greatness does not necessarily require the loud, aggressive validation of a written royal proclamation. As we wander mentally through these silent, majestic courtyards and gaze up at the towering structures that completely defy modern explanation, the overwhelming sense of mystery deepens with every single passing moment. The missing written language acts as an invisible veil, protecting the deepest secrets of the civilization, leaving modern historians to piece together a complex puzzle, using only the mute physical evidence left behind in the earth. We are left to wonder whether this total anonymity was a deliberate philosophical choice, or a tragic historical accident that stripped an entire culture of its individual voice. But wait, there is more, and the reality hidden just beneath the surface of this apparent cultural vacuum is far more astonishing than any traditional royal chronicle could ever possibly reveal. When those wandering warriors first gazed down the colossal central axis of this abandoned metropolis, they made a deeply understandable but fundamentally flawed assumption. They looked upon the endless rows of earthen mounds lining the massive thoroughfare and firmly concluded that these structures must be royal tombs. In their profound reverence for the silent unknown, they solemnly named this central artery the Avenue of the Dead, cementing a rather grim reputation. This melancholic title perfectly matched the dark aesthetic that modern popular culture often retroactively applies to ancient civilizations, imagining a terrifying landscape dominated by shadows. We have been culturally conditioned to picture these sprawling stone plazas as bleak arenas echoing with the sounds of endless warfare and brutal domination. The true nature of this awe-inspiring avenue represents a brilliant triumph of civil engineering that rivals the aquatic infrastructure of any advanced modern municipality. This massive urban corridor was actually designed as a brilliant sequence of interconnected stepped sections, acting as an enormous, cascading water management system. During the torrential seasonal downpours, these broad, flat compartments would completely fill with fresh rainwater, transforming the dusty stone walkway into a breathtaking chain of shallow reflecting pools. The master builders had essentially sculpted a magnificent artificial river, flowing gently right through the very heart of their densely populated urban paradise. The sheer ingenuity required to perfectly level these vast watery terraces demonstrates a society deeply invested in harmony with natural elements rather than an obsession with morbid ceremonies. Instead of a grim march of the dead, imagine the sheer vibrant majesty of this city at the absolute height of its cultural prosperity. Picture a shimmering, sunlit paradise where a miles-long mirror captures the azure sky above, brilliantly reflecting the towering, brightly painted red and white pyramids. The water would have been entirely surrounded by lush greenery, thriving agricultural terraces, and the joyous sounds of countless citizens gathering around the cooling urban oasis. This was undeniably an avenue of life, a fluid, sparkling centerpiece that brought vital hydration, cooling breezes, and profound aesthetic beauty to a thriving desert metropolis. The persistent myth of a dark, yet terrifying empire instantly dissolves into a radiant vision of a peaceful, highly advanced society, bathing in the warm glow of mirrored sunlight. Ultimately, this profound architectural revelation forces us to completely reevaluate everything we thought we inherently understood about the vibrant daily emotional reality of these remarkably brilliant ancient people. By delicately stripping away the suffocating, gloomy layers of historical misinterpretation, we finally uncover a highly sophisticated civilization that enthusiastically celebrated joyful existence, radiant natural light, and the nurturing power of their environment. They did not labour to build their greatest architectural marvel simply to honour the cold stillness of death. Instead, they designed it to eternally capture the flowing heavens and bring the boundless sky downward. And when we look back at the grand sweep of human history, monumental architecture is almost exclusively tied to the iron will of absolute dictators. We naturally expect that any society capable of moving mountains of stone must be driven by the ruthless ambition of one all-powerful monarch. From the sprawling estates of imperial Rome to the towering pyramids of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, extreme centralization of power always leaves a specific archaeological footprint. We naturally assume that a supreme ruler would demand colossal statues bearing their likeness and massive monuments dedicated entirely to their personal glory. A city of this unimaginable scale surely required a tyrannical overseer to whip the massive population into total submission. Now listen carefully, because what researchers actually found beneath these sun-baked stones completely defies everything we thought we knew about ancient power dynamics. The startling truth slowly emerged from the profound silence of the sprawling ruins. This extraordinary megacity had absolutely no singular king. Despite meticulously excavating the very heart of the ceremonial centre, archaeologists have never found a single royal tomb celebrating an individual ruler. There are no imposing statues of arrogant conquerors holding the decapitated heads of their enemies, nor are there any dynastic lineages etched into public plazas. Instead of portraying dominant warlords, the breathtaking frescoes consistently depict anonymous priests, elegant flowing animals, and deeply symbolic representations of the vital natural world. The entire artistic focus of the civilization was consciously directed outward toward the cosmos and the collective community, rather than toward a fragile royal ego. Here is where it gets interesting, as this deliberate absence of a supreme dictator forces us to reimagine the very foundation of human societal organization. To a modern mind raised on the fundamental principles of representative democracy, this ancient urban landscape suddenly feels profoundly familiar and deeply resonant. The physical evidence strongly suggests that this massive metropolis was governed not by royal decree, but by a complex, highly organized administrative council. Power appears to have been shared among representatives from various distinct neighborhoods, creating a sophisticated system of checks and balances long before the Enlightenment. This was an incredibly advanced ancient society that seemingly prioritized the stability of the collective over the erratic whims of a solitary, absolute ruler. They managed to coordinate the labor of countless thousands to build towering monuments without relying on the brutal lash of a tyrannical dictator. What happened next will surprise you, because the structural layout of the city itself actively reflects this revolutionary commitment to shared civic responsibility. This revelation entirely shatters the conventional illusion that immense societal progress inherently requires the heavy hand of a supreme, unquestioned authority figure. We are looking at a prehistoric civilization that successfully maintained harmony and orchestrated massive public works through a surprisingly modern ethos of civic cooperation. The intricate urban planning demonstrates that their true strength came from a shared ideological vision, uniting diverse groups under a common, overarching cosmic purpose. In a world where neighbouring empires lived and died by the sword of ruthless kings, this city stood as a magnificent beacon of collective endeavour. It is a powerful reminder that our ongoing pursuit of balanced, Communal governance is not just a recent political experiment, but a deeply rooted human aspiration. The profound anonymity of their leadership was clearly not an accidental oversight, none, but rather a fiercely protected ideological choice defining their entire culture. By completely erasing the individual ego from their monumental architecture, they ensured that the awe-inspiring city itself became the sole immortal character. The towering pyramids were not built to elevate a mortal man, but to elevate the shared spirit of a profoundly enlightened ancient populace. But the most devastating event was yet to come, waiting quietly in the shadows to test the ultimate resilience of this magnificent collective utopia. Stepping away from the towering kingless pyramids, we slowly descend into the quiet, everyday intimacy of the surrounding residential neighbourhoods. The grand ceremonial plazas gradually give way to a beautifully sprawling labyrinth of densely packed, communal stone dwellings. Here, the true heartbeat of this ancient metropolis was not found in majestic temples, but within these complex living spaces. Archaeologists discovered that nearly the entire massive population resided in these sophisticated, spacious apartment compounds scattered across the vast urban grid. Each massive block housed dozens of individuals sharing interconnected living rooms, beautiful central patios, and highly sophisticated underground drainage systems. It is a truly remarkable architectural feat that feels surprisingly familiar to anyone walking through a modern urban landscape today. Here is where it gets interesting, as these ancient residential blocks reveal a vibrant society built on profound cultural integration. Far from being a completely homogeneous population, the city operated as a vibrant, ancient equivalent of a bustling American melting pot. Migrants from distant corners of the continent journeyed across treacherous landscapes to seek a better life within these painted walls. Excavations have uncovered distinct ethnic enclaves where eager foreigners maintain their unique ancestral traditions while contributing to the greater civic good. Zapotec diplomats, skilled Maya artisans, and Mixtec traders lived harmoniously side by side in a remarkably peaceful and productive coexistence. You can almost imagine these vibrant neighbourhoods functioning much like the culturally rich boroughs of modern New York City. Within the thick limestone walls of these compounds, the daily rhythm of life unfolded with a quiet dignity. Families gathered around communal hearths in the fading twilight, sharing nourishing meals of maize and beans after a long day. Skilled craftsmen chipped away at volcanic obsidian glass, producing incredibly sharp tools that fueled the powerful economic engine of the city. Meanwhile, talented weavers created brilliantly dyed textiles, their intricate patterns echoing the vibrant murals that decorated their shared living spaces. Children from completely different cultural backgrounds likely played together in the sunlit courtyards, speaking a fascinating symphony of diverse languages. Can we even begin to fathom the profound level of tolerance required to maintain such a harmonious, multicultural ancient society? This was an extraordinary place where individual origins mattered far less than your active contribution to the thriving collective community. The physical layout of the apartment compounds intentionally fostered a deep sense of mutual reliance and shared civic responsibility. Thick walls provided necessary privacy, while the central courtyards forced neighbours to interact, collaborate, and support one another daily. It represents an incredibly advanced social experiment that predates our modern notions of diverse, cosmopolitan urban living by millennia. The sheer scale of this peaceful integration stands in stark contrast to the violent conquests defining other ancient empires. They managed to forge a unified identity out of countless distinct cultures, creating a true sanctuary of progressive human cooperation. Today, the roofless ruins of these apartment blocks stand completely silent, bathed in the soft, melancholic light of the afternoon. The colourful murals have slowly faded, and the bustling symphony of ancient foreign tongues has long since evaporated into the wind. Yet, the enduring foundation stones still powerfully whisper the inspiring story of a successful, diverse community united by a shared dream. They serve as a poignant reminder that the pursuit of a harmonious, multicultural society is an ancient, deeply rooted human aspiration. As the shadows lengthen across the empty patios, the silent echoes of these forgotten citizens finally lead us toward an even darker mystery. While the sunlit residential compounds whispered tales of community life, a completely different revelation waited beneath the ancient stone monuments. For centuries, the massive pyramid dedicated to the feathered serpent stood as a magnificent architectural triumph, keeping its deepest secrets locked away. Then came a fateful stormy day in 2003, when a relentless downpour battered the weathered ruins of the sacred ceremonial zone. The sudden deluge saturated the sun-baked earth around the structure, triggering an unexpected and dramatic geological shift across the plaza. A mysterious sinkhole suddenly cracked open right beneath the feet of astonished caretakers, exposing a terrifyingly dark subterranean void. This hidden space had remained completely undisturbed beneath the heavy layers of stone for nearly 2 long millennia. Archaeologists quickly gathered around the gaping maw, sensing that a major historical breakthrough was finally within their eager grasp. Initial reports confirmed that the drop-off plunged dozens of feet into absolute darkness, without hitting any visible floor. The team rushed to the excavation site with the keen focus of seasoned detectives investigating a historic mystery. They carefully lowered specialized robotic cameras down into the yawning maw, peering anxiously at the flickering video footage. The initial glimpses revealed an artificial cavern carved deep into the stubborn living bedrock beneath the colossal pyramid. Sophisticated ground-penetrating radar scans were swiftly deployed across the open plaza, confirming the astonishing presence of an extensive tunnel. It immediately became crystal clear that this hidden corridor was a deliberate architectural masterpiece designed with profound intent. The intricate subterranean system spanned hundreds of feet, stretching far beyond the initial boundaries of the sacred structure. Every single scanning metric suggested that an extraordinarily complex world lay completely sealed beneath the ancient dust. Researchers exchanged glances filled with mounting excitement as the digital readouts began mapping out the complete layout of the uncharted chambers waiting below. Here is where the investigation takes a truly astonishing turn, pulling us deeper into the mindset of the architects. Historical evidence strongly suggested that the entrance to this subterranean labyrinth had been intentionally sealed by the inhabitants. Massive boulders, heavy timber beams, and thick layers of refined soil had been packed tightly into the passage. This created an impenetrable barrier designed to protect whatever sacred treasures lay hidden beyond the stone wall. The modern excavation team faced a grueling task, spending long, arduous months carefully removing tons of packed earth. They worked tirelessly, without disturbing the fragile structural integrity of the historic pyramid standing proudly above them. Every shovelful of dirt carried away felt like peeling back the heavy velvet curtains of a forbidden stage. The sheer physical toll of the operation only fueled their determination to uncover the ultimate truth resting at the end of the corridor. As the narrow passage was finally cleared for entry, a wave of electric anticipation swept through the camp. Descending into the subterranean world required specialized safety gear, an absolute commitment to navigating the dark atmosphere. Across with the bright plazas above was immediate, replacing the warm air with a damp, heavy chill. Flashlight beams cut through thick shadows, sweeping across hand-carved walls bearing the silent marks of ancient stone chisels. Every cautious step forward felt like crossing an invisible boundary between the realm of living mortals and gods. The air grew dense and heavy, carrying the unmistakable scent of damp earth and centuries of profound silence. Yet an unwavering current of excitement kept the weary expedition moving forward into the unknown subterranean depths. Shadows danced wildly against the damp rock faces as the team pushed further into the echoing abyss of the underworld. The mysterious corridor stretched endlessly into the darkness, maintaining a precise and uniform architectural geometry throughout its length. Archaeologists moved forward with slow footsteps, trying to comprehend the sheer scale of human labour required here. The tunnel walls were meticulously coated with a shimmering mineral powder that caught the flickering light beams. Every corner revealed new, perfectly preserved artifacts left untouched since the final days of the ancient civilization. They were inching closer to an extraordinary revelation that would completely redefine our understanding of ancient cosmology. The oppressive darkness closed in from all sides, amplifying the profound mystery of what lay just ahead. This hidden underworld was ready to surrender secrets that had remained buried for more than 2,000 years. Every heartbeat echoed softly against the stone, marking the slow and deliberate countdown toward a breathtaking historical discovery. Dr. Sarah adjusted her heavy headlamp, feeling the damp chill press against her skin as she took her first measured steps into the subterranean corridor. As an experienced American field researcher, deeply rooted in rigorous scientific methodology, she trusted empirical data far more than ancient legends or folklore. Yet, standing 18 meters beneath the surface, the overwhelming silence began to challenge her pragmatic resolve in unexpected ways. Every breath echoed softly against the hand-carved bedrock, reminding her of the immense geological isolation enclosing the narrow space. The narrow shaft dropped progressively deeper into the earth, requiring careful coordination with her support crew, stationed safely up above. Every piece of diagnostic equipment she carried was meticulously logged, reflecting a lifetime of academic discipline designed to keep irrational fears at bay. But the ancient atmosphere possessed a heavy, suffocating weight that no amount of modern instrumentation could fully quantify or explain away. She pushed forward through the enveloping darkness, relying entirely on professional detachment to maintain her emotional equilibrium. Here is where the boundary between cold science and ancient ritual began to blur into a profound psychological test, and the powerful flashlight beam bounced off damp walls, adorned with traces of gleaming jade and weathered hematite powder left behind by ancient hands. Sarah forced her breathing to remain slow and steady, reminding herself that every strange shadow had a rational physical explanation. The subterranean journey demanded absolute psychological stamina, testing the limits of her academic training against the lingering atmosphere of a vanished culture. She kept her hands steady on her tools despite the growing tension. Still, the suffocating enclosure whispered of forgotten intentions, as if the dark corridor itself were actively monitoring her slow progress. 9. The air grew noticeably warmer and denser the further she ventured into the winding subterranean abyss beneath the ancient monuments. Her analytical mind calculated the immense tonnage of limestone pressing down from above, creating a crushing reminder of human ambition frozen in time. She suppressed a rising wave of claustrophobia, focusing entirely on documenting every single architectural detail with clinical precision. She noted the meticulous construction of the tunnel walls, marvelled at the deliberate engineering choices, and refused to yield to mounting pressure. For what felt like endless hours, she pressed forward through the damp gloom, guided only by the stubborn pursuit of historical truth. Every cautious footprint marked another step further away from the familiar modern world she had left behind under the open sky. Her logical framework was being pushed to its absolute limits by the sheer atmospheric intensity of the sacred underworld passage. Every detail mattered to the success of the mission. The absolute stillness of the underground world enveloped her completely, preparing her senses for the final staggering chamber awaiting discovery. Her scientific training had brought her this far into the dark earth, but what waited at the very end of the passage defied ordinary explanation. The flickering light revealed the threshold of an impossible architectural marvel resting quietly in the deep shadows. The journey through the underworld was reaching its ultimate climax, ready to unveil a secret that would forever change her understanding of antiquity. Here is where the investigation takes its most breathtaking turn, pulling us past the damp limestone barrier into a hidden chamber forgotten by time. The beam of the headlamp cut through the suffocating stillness, sweeping across surfaces that shimmered with an eerie, otherworldly luminescence that defied all conventional explanation. For years, standard archaeological theory had predicted mere storage vaults or simple ritual offerings at the terminus of such massive engineering feats, but the reality waiting in the deep darkness completely shattered every academic assumption, offering a window into a cosmos crafted entirely by human hands. The air grew still and heavy, charged with an uncanny energy that made every single heartbeat resonate against the ancient stone walls. Every cautious step forward felt like crossing an invisible threshold into a realm where myth and architectural genius intertwined seamlessly. The monumental scale of the subterranean space revealed a level of sophistication that challenged everything historians thought they knew about the ancient world. As the sweeping light settled upon the floor of the secret underground cavern, a shimmering expanse caught the beam with a metallic, hypnotic gleam. Resting quietly in carved stone basins were pools of liquid mercury reflecting the dancing shadows like liquid mirrors forged from the stars themselves. In the ancient worldview, quicksilver was not merely a rare element but a sacred substance capable of mirroring the celestial waters of the underworld. The reflective metallic surfaces rippled imperceptibly under the damp subterranean breeze, casting erratic patterns of light across the damp vertical walls. It was an astonishing display of chemical mastery and cosmological devotion, executed with a precision that left modern researchers breathless with quiet awe. The sheer scale of effort required to harvest and transport such massive quantities of heavy metal down into the pitch-black earth was staggering beyond all human comprehension. Each reflective pool served as a physical gateway between the terrestrial domain and the spiritual deep. Now listen carefully, for the true marvel waited not beneath their feet, but directly above them in the velvety blackness of the vaulted ceiling. Millions of tiny glittering flakes of iron pyrite had been meticulously embedded into the dark mortar overhead, catching every stray flicker of light. When the headlamps swept across the vault, the entire ceiling exploded into a breathtaking imitation of a starlit night sky, glowing with golden constellations. It was an uncanny replication of the celestial firmament, painstakingly constructed deep beneath the heavy layers of stone and earth to honour the cosmic order. The architects of this wonder had not merely built a tunnel, they had captured the infinite night sky and locked it away beneath a colossal pyramid. Standing beneath this artificial galaxy, the boundary between the mortal realm and the infinite heavens dissolved entirely into a profound, hypnotic silence. The glittering overhead canopy transformed the dark subterranean vault into a sacred sanctuary of cosmic proportions. This was the ultimate masterpiece of the civilization, an architectural triumph designed to bridge the chasm between the underworld and the divine heavens above. The ancient creators had achieved the impossible, bringing the entire universe down into the dark, silent embrace of the earth for eternity. Every shining particle of dust and every pool of metal spoke of a profound connection that transcended the passage of millennia. As the light danced across the golden constellations, the weight of the centuries lifted away, leaving a reverent quietude in the damp air. They had descended into the darkest depths of the earth, only to discover that the ancient builders had reached all the way up to touch the stars. The grand discovery stood as a timeless testament to human imagination, forever binding the eternal mysteries of the cosmos with the silent, enduring earth. After reaching the absolute zenith of their cosmic mastery, the grand metropolis did not fall to a conquering foreign army marching across the scorched horizon. Instead, a slow and agonizing twilight began to consume the vibrant heart of the civilization from deep within its own peaceful quarters. Generations of unprecedented prosperity and artistic achievement had quietly given way to mounting internal tins that steadily eroded the foundational harmony of the landscape. This gradual decay marked the beginning of an internal crisis that would ultimately prove far more lethal than any external threat. But the most devastating catastrophe was brewing quietly right at the sacred centre of the city, hidden beneath layers of intentional destruction. Archaeologists uncovering the charred remnants of once majestic temples found stark evidence of systematic fires and deliberate desecration executed by local hands. It was not a sudden battle waged against external rivals that brought the mighty empire to its knees, but a profound internal fracture. This violent division tore apart the shared social fabric from the inside out, without a single warning sign from abroad. Communities turned against each other in bitter disputes over dwindling resources and fading political authority across the sprawling districts. The fragile harmony of communal living that had sustained generations of diverse inhabitants slowly gave way to bitter internal strife. Families abandoned their traditional hearths, leaving behind cold cooking stones and silent courtyards as the grand administrative machinery ground to a halt. A profound wave of disillusionment swept through the bustling streets, turning vibrant avenues of trade into hollow corridors of soot. No victorious conquerors claimed the spoils of war, because there was nothing left to conquer save for empty shells of ash. The once proud citizens scattered into the surrounding valleys, carrying only memories of a fractured paradise that could never be restored. There is a hauntingly familiar resonance in this silent collapse, echoing deep modern anxieties of societies growing too vast and complex. When trust ultimately dissolves among those sharing the same streets, even majestic stone monuments cannot protect a civilization from fragmentation. The grand experiment in collective living did not vanish in a single dramatic flash of violence on the high plateau. Instead, it faded away into the quiet, desolate winds of history, leaving modern observers to ponder the fragility of achievement. We are left to wonder how such monumental unity could dissolve so completely under the pressure of internal discord. The towering pyramids eventually stood completely silent and abandoned under the open sky, reclaimed by the relentless overgrowth of the forest. Only ghosts of a fractured dream remained lingering among the scorched stones, whispering the sorrowful tale of a great fallen empire. The magnificent metropolis slipped slowly into heavy shadows of antiquity, leaving behind an empty stage waiting for forgotten millennia. Not a single word of explanation was ever carved into the ancient rock to account for the sudden disappearance. Nature slowly reclaimed the vast plazas, burying the scars of human conflict beneath thick layers of fertile soil and green vines. The final chapter of this once glorious society was written not in the blood of foreign battlefields, but in bitter, self-inflicted ruin. Every charred timber and broken statue bore silent witness to a tragedy born of human division rather than celestial wrath. As the last remaining residents drifted away into the surrounding wilderness, the great city breathed its final mournful sigh. It surrendered its deepest secrets to the patient earth, sealing away a legacy of monumental ambition in eternal twilight. And so the great experiment ended not with a roar, but with the quiet whisper of a civilization undone by itself. Centuries after the great metropolis faded into the quiet embrace of the wilderness, a new empire of fierce warriors emerged across the valley, discovering the silent ruins rising like mountain peaks through the dense green canopy. Standing before the colossal structures that utterly defied their own understanding, the Aztec leaders looked upon the vast plazas and towering pyramids with profound awe rather than thoughts of conquest. Here was a monument so grand and otherworldly that mortal hands alone could never have conceived its creation without divine inspiration guiding every carved stone. They whispered ancient legends through the cool evening shadows, believing this sacred landscape was the exact birthplace of the sun and the moon, the cosmic origin point where the universe itself was breathed into existence. It was a revelation that completely transformed their worldview, binding their imperial identity to a landscape charged with immortal energy. Now listen carefully, for this was where human history and celestial mythology intertwined to reshape the spiritual destiny of an entire rising civilization. The newcomers did not view the abandoned stone avenues as the remnants of a hostile fallen enemy, but as a divine sanctuary forged by ancient gods long before the dawn of recorded time. They carefully swept away the decades of accumulated earth and tangled vines from the grand staircases, treating every weathered block with sacred reverence and absolute humility. Every ritual performed upon those ancient stone altars was a desperate, hopeful attempt to reconnect with the eternal creators who had walked the plaza floors long before the first human breath touched the air. In their eyes, the silent city was a living cosmic bridge connecting the fragile mortal directly to the endless turning of the celestial wheel, a temple built for eternity itself. This profound transformation turned the desolate ruins into the spiritual heartland of a dominant empire, anchoring their identity firmly in a mythic past that transcended ordinary chronological time. Modern minds often seek definitive answers written neatly in stone, demanding precise names, administrative records, and historical chronicles to validate the significance of an ancient site. But the true brilliance of such enduring monument lies precisely in their ability to remain forever wrapped in an impenetrable veil of poetic mystery. They stand as quiet, unwavering reminders that our greatest human achievements are defined not by what we fully comprehend, but by the eternal questions we leave behind for future generations to ponder. The grand architecture does not need to speak with human words when its majestic, silent presence commands such absolute reverence across the changing centuries. As we look back across the vast expanse of time from the rush of our modern urban lives, the echoes of this ancient sanctuary invite us to pause and reflect deeply. We recognize that every great society we build today is merely a temporary chapter in a much larger story written across the stars and the enduring earth. Towering pyramids of the ancient valley continue to rise above the changing landscape, offering a timeless refuge for those seeking to touch the infinite stillness of the cosmos. They remind us that true beauty and monumental ambition can outlive the civilizations that birthed them, echoing softly through the quiet, forgotten corridors of human memory. The grand journey of rediscovery leaves us standing in the same profound stillness, watching the eternal shadows lengthen slowly across the ancient stones as night falls over the silent valley. And as quiet night descends upon the bustling concrete landscape of our modern world, we find ourselves drifting away from the heavy burdens of daily life. Whether we move through the crowded metropolitan avenues like busy engineers or navigate the quiet corridors of our own private thoughts, we share a profound and silent kinship with the ancient travellers of the past. Every rushing ambition, and every complex problem begins to dissolve softly into the velvet darkness outside your window. The rushing noise of the city fades into a distant, gentle hum, leaving behind only the steady, calming rhythm of your own breathing. Yeah. We are all temporary guests walking along the endless, winding corridors of time, leaving our fleeting footprints upon the shifting sands of human history. The proud rulers who once commanded vast empires, the brilliant architects who mapped towering metropolises, and the rational scientific minds who sought to decode the deepest mysteries of the earth, all ultimately surrendered to the same quiet night. None of us can truly hold back the advancing shadows or freeze the relentless turning of the celestial wheel, shining brightly above our heads. We simply pass through this magnificent, mysterious world for a brief, beautiful moment before returning to the profound stillness from which we all originally emerged. Yeah. Let the physical weight of the long hours slowly lift from your shoulders as you allow your tired body to sink deeper into the comfortable warmth of your bed. The ancient stones have rested beneath their blankets of green earth for uncounted centuries, teaching us the pure transcendent beauty of letting go completely. There are no more riddles to solve tonight, no more complex paths to navigate through the dark labyrinth of tomorrow. The universe takes care of its own eternal secrets, wrapping them safely in layers of silence and starlight while the world sleeps. You can safely release every lingering thought, letting your tired mind drift freely into the gentle, restorative embrace of total quiet. The monuments we build and the grand stories we tell are merely whispers captured in the wind, destined to echo softly across the vast expanse of eternity. They remind us that true peace does not come from controlling the shifting world around us, but from finding stillness within our own souls. As the dark earth embraces the sleeping valley below, let your own racing thoughts settle into a deep, comforting stillness. There is nothing left for you to achieve tonight, nowhere else you need to be, and no further questions left to answer in the dark. Long the soft echoes of forgotten history to carry you far away into a deep, unbroken slumber where time completely loses all its rigid boundaries. The stars above continue their timeless dance across the infinite vault of heaven, watching over your peaceful rest with a quiet, ancient grace. May the dark velvet night bring complete restoration to your spirit, washing away every single trace of weariness from your long day. Close your eyes, breathe out the remaining tension, and let the gentle current of the night carry you into sweet dreams of endless wonder. I wish you a calm and peaceful night.